You're discussing politics with someone you know at the local gym. She asks you what you think of the Prime Minister. You tell her that you don't like many of his policies. But you say this because you do think one of his ideas is good.
I do agree with him on defense, though. I do agree with him on defense, though. I do agree with him on defense, though.
Your daughter wanted to go on an overnight trip with her friends to see a concert in another city. You told her she couldn't go, but she bought tickets to the concert anyway. On that day, she lied and said that she was studying late with her friend. When you find out about this, you're very angry. You yell this at her.
You not only disobeyed me, you betrayed my trust. You not only disobeyed me, you betrayed my trust. You not only disobeyed me, you betrayed my trust.
You're writing an essay about how technology affects people's lives. You write this in the introduction to your essay.
Modern life is confusing in that technology is constantly changing. Modern life is confusing in that technology is constantly changing. Modern life is confusing in that technology is constantly changing.
You go out to a restaurant with your friend and don't want to order much because you're saving money. You say this to explain that you're saving because you want to buy a house.
We're trying to save up so that we can afford a house. We're trying to save up so that we can afford a house. We're trying to save up so that we can afford a house.
You have a problem at work with people from the sales department missing deadlines for the reports they're supposed to give you. You want to change the policy to make the deadlines earlier and to punish those who miss it. You discuss this plan with the director of the sales department. He agrees and he says this.
I'm behind you on this 100%. I'm behind you on this 100%. I'm behind you on this 100%.
A person you used to work with is volunteering for an organization. The organization's trying to change the law to allow foreigners to move to your country to start a business. You don't know much about this law, but you think that it might be good if foreigners started businesses in your country. You think that it might help to create new jobs, so you say this.
I'm in support of anything that generates new jobs. I'm in support of anything that generates new jobs. I'm in support of anything that generates new jobs.
I do agree with him on defense, though.
You not only disobeyed me, you betrayed my trust.
Modern life is confusing in that technology is constantly changing. We're trying to save up so that we can afford a house.
I'm behind you on this 100%.
I'm in support of anything that generates new jobs.
Your brother has made a lot of money on the stock market and says that he wants to use some of the money to buy an expensive sports car. You try to talk him out of it, convince him not to do it, but he says he can afford to buy it because he has enough money. You say this because you still think the idea is dumb.
Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
You were in a meeting at work where you heard about a change in your work schedule. You're talking to an employee who wasn't at the meeting. You want to talk to her about the schedule change, but you're not ready to discuss it yet. You say this to her.
Just a heads up, we're going to have to meet soon. Just a heads up, we're going to have to meet soon. Just a heads up, we're going to have to meet soon.
Your teenage son has been misbehaving at school. You want him to start behaving better, so you tell him that if he behaves well at school, you'll let him get a new cell phone. But if he doesn't behave, he'll be punished. He seems to agree with that plan. You hold out your hand to shake hands with him and ask this.
Do we have an agreement? Do we have an agreement? Do we have an agreement?
You wanted to go to a certain restaurant, but the wait to get in was long. You put your name down on the waiting list, but your girlfriend wanted to see if the wait at another restaurant nearby was shorter. You went to the other restaurant, but they had an even longer wait. So you went back to the first restaurant, but you find out that they already passed you on the list and you have to be added to the bottom of the list again. You say this because you wish you hadn't tried to leave.
If only we'd just waited there, this never would have happened. If only we'd just waited there, this never would have happened. If only we'd just waited there, this never would have happened.
Your wife is gone on a business trip. She left yesterday. You have a young son who starts crying because he misses his mother. You say this, trying to get him to settle down and stop crying.
She's only been gone one day. She's only been gone one day. She's only been gone one day.
A villain on a TV show wants to make the hero do something, so he has kidnapped the hero's girlfriend. The villain threatens the hero by saying this.
I'm sure we can come to an agreement. I'm sure we can come to an agreement. I'm sure we can come to an agreement. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Just a heads up, we're going to have to meet soon. Do we have an agreement? If only we'd just waited there, this never would have happened. She's only been gone one day. I'm sure we can come to an agreement.
A candidate for a Senate position is being interviewed by a news reporter. The reporter wants to know what the candidate thinks about changing the healthcare system. She asks the candidate this question.
What's your position on healthcare reform? What's your position on healthcare reform? What's your position on healthcare reform?
You're having a conversation with your mother, and she mentions an embarrassing story about you. You wish she wouldn't tell that story, so you say this to her.
Come on, did you have to bring that up? Come on, did you have to bring that up? Come on, did you have to bring that up?
You need to talk to your boss about urgent business. You call, but his assistant answers the phone and says that he's been gone for most of the afternoon. You want to know where he is so that you can decide if you should call his mobile phone. If he's with a client, you'll leave a message with the assistant. But if he's out on some other business, you'll call his mobile phone. You ask this to his assistant.
Did he mention where he was going? Did he mention where he was going? Did he mention where he was going?
You heard some information that makes you think that Sony's going to start selling a tablet computer. The information came from things that the company said and wrote, but they haven't officially said that they'll do this. You think that they'll announce it at a conference next week. You write this on an internet message board about this conference.
They've hinted that they may be introducing a new tablet. They've hinted that they may be introducing a new tablet. They've hinted that they may be introducing a new tablet.
In a meeting for the entire staff, the marketing director is complimenting how well her employees put together an event. She says this because she's extremely pleased.
They did just a phenomenal job on this event. They did just a phenomenal job on this event. They did just a phenomenal job on this event.
You're working on a group project for school. You're trying to work, but one of the group members, who you know well, is just making jokes and chatting instead of working. You say this to him.
Can you just stop it, please? Can you just stop it, please? Can you just stop it, please?
What's your position on healthcare reform?
Come on, did you have to bring that up?
Did he mention where he was going? They've hinted that they may be introducing a new tablet.
They did just a phenomenal job on this event.
Can you just stop it, please?
Your company's sales numbers have been decreasing for 3 months. You're giving a presentation to some coworkers and say this to point out the problem.
We've been going through a period of weak sales. We've been going through a period of weak sales. We've been going through a period of weak sales.
You're having a conversation with your friend about a TV commercial, but you haven't seen it because you don't watch commercials. This is how you explain that you have a DVR and always skip commercials.
I usually just fast forward through the commercials. I usually just fast forward through the commercials. I usually just fast forward through the commercials.
Your husband was invited to meet his friends at a bar for drinks and told his friends that he would go. But now he doesn't want to go and is considering staying home instead. You think he should go because he told his friends that he would. You give him this advice on integrity.
If you promised them you'd be there, you'd really better follow through. If you promised them you'd be there, you'd really better follow through. If you promised them you'd be there, you'd really better follow through.
Your younger brother has told you that he's thinking of dropping out of college to start his own business. You think that it might be a bad idea, but you respect that it's his decision. You want to check to make sure he's really sure about his decision, so you ask this.
Are you sure you've really thought this through? Are you sure you've really thought this through? Are you sure you've really thought this through?
You're writing an essay about your opinion on a scandal. The scandal involved a school principal who was spying on his students over the internet. You want to say that it was wrong for the principal to spy on the students because of his position. You write this to say that it's also wrong for other people to do similar things.
People in a position of authority have a responsibility not to abuse that authority. People in a position of authority have a responsibility not to abuse that authority. People in a position of authority have a responsibility not to abuse that authority.
You're talking to a coworker who wants to move to a different job within the company. You know of a job that's available, so you offered this suggestion.
There's a position open in digital marketing now that Vicky left. There's a position open in digital marketing now that Vicky left. There's a position open in digital marketing now that Vicky left. We've been going through a period of weak sales.
I usually just fast forward through the commercials. If you promised them you'd be there, you'd really better follow through.
Are you sure you've really thought this through?
People in a position of authority have a responsibility not to abuse that authority.
There's a position open in digital marketing now that Vicky left.
You edited a music video for a class at film school. You want to get your friends' opinions before putting the video online for everyone to see. You send an email to your friends which explains the video. At the end, you ask them this.
I'd love to hear what you think of it. I'd love to hear what you think of it. I'd love to hear what you think of it.
You're discussing a coworker who is working on a contract basis, not as a full-time employee. You were told that the company is going to end this person's contract. You want to tell this news to another coworker without saying who made the decision. This is how you explain.
It looks like his contract isn't being renewed. It looks like his contract isn't being renewed. It looks like his contract isn't being renewed.
You're at a bar and use the bathroom there. The bathroom is extremely dirty and smells bad. When you come out of the bathroom, you make this complaint to your friends.
I've never been in such a disgusting bathroom in my life. I've never been in such a disgusting bathroom in my life. I've never been in such a disgusting bathroom in my life.
You're planning a business trip for you and several coworkers. You sent an early schedule a month ago, but then you made a new schedule, which you sent last week. You want to make sure that your coworkers saw the new schedule, so you ask this to one of them.
Did you get the revised schedule I sent out last week? Did you get the revised schedule I sent out last week? Did you get the revised schedule I sent out last week?
You're taking a TOEFL test. The person who is administering the test is reading the test instructions aloud. She reads the following line about the bathroom break policy.
If you need to use the restroom, you may do so. If you need to use the restroom, you may do so. If you need to use the restroom, you may do so.
A real estate agent is showing you an apartment that you're considering renting. You ask him this because the building's old, but the apartment looks new.
Was this renovated recently? Was this renovated recently? Was this renovated recently?
I'd love to hear what you think of it.
It looks like his contract isn't being renewed.
I've never been in such a disgusting bathroom in my life.
Did you get the revised schedule I sent out last week?
If you need to use the restroom, you may do so.
Was this renovated recently?
You're suspected of a crime and have to tell the police exactly what you did on a certain night. You offer this as your alibi.
I drove directly home after leaving work. I drove directly home after leaving work. I drove directly home after leaving work.
You usually stop by the supermarket or the gym after work before coming home. But yesterday, you wanted to get home earlier because you are hooked on a TV show that you've been watching on DVD. You tell this to your friend.
I went straight home after work. I went straight home after work. I went straight home after work.
A coworker told you that another coworker is leaving the company and taking a new job somewhere else. You want to talk to the person who's leaving to say goodbye. You start the conversation by saying this to her.
So, I heard you're leaving us. So, I heard you're leaving us. So, I heard you're leaving us.
You want to renew the lease on your apartment. Your husband has sent an email to the landlord, but you don't know if she responded to him yet. You ask him this.
Have you heard back about the lease yet? Have you heard back about the lease yet? Have you heard back about the lease yet?
You're helping a person log on to a website account. He's entered his login name and password, but the screen just turns white and nothing happens. You want this person to reload the page, so you tell him this.
You might have to refresh your browser. You might have to refresh your browser. You might have to refresh your browser.
You're at a meeting for the homeowners association for your neighborhood. You've made a suggestion to raise the homeowners fee, but the other members immediately start making noises and complaining before you could explain your reasons for raising it. You want everyone to listen to your reasons first before deciding, so you say this.
Hold on, just hear me out first. Hold on, just hear me out first. Hold on, just hear me out first. I drove directly home after leaving work.
I went straight home after work.
So, I heard you're leaving us.
Have you heard back about the lease yet?
You might have to refresh your browser.
Hold on, just hear me out first.
You think your teenage daughter is lazy because she spends too much time on the computer. You say this to your husband to complain.
All she does is sit around on the internet. All she does is sit around on the internet. All she does is sit around on the internet.
You're working on a project at work. You've spoken with your coworkers briefly about your plans, but you haven't discussed the details yet. You say this to suggest that you discuss the details later.
We should sit down and go through the details later this week. We should sit down and go through the details later this week. We should sit down and go through the details later this week.
You're busy cleaning up your house because there are guests coming over for an hour. Your children aren't helping and are just watching TV. You complain this to them.
Don't just sit there. Don't just sit there. Don't just sit there.
Your brother announces that he got engaged. You're a bit surprised because he's only been dating his fiancée for 5 months. Someone asks what you think about it, and you say this.
It kind of took me by surprise. It kind of took me by surprise. It kind of took me by surprise.
You visit your aunt's house. There's an easel set up in the corner of one of the rooms, but you've never heard about your aunt painting before. This is how you ask her about it.
Oh, have you taken up painting? Oh, have you taken up painting? Oh, have you taken up painting?
Your coworker is trying to change the color of some text on a spreadsheet document on his computer, but can't figure out how to do it. You think you know how, so you say this.
Here, let me take a look. Here, let me take a look. Here, let me take a look.
All she does is sit around on the internet.
We should sit down and go through the details later this week.
Don't just sit there.
It kind of took me by surprise. Oh, have you taken up painting?
Here, let me take a look.